I'm a human being before I'm a human doing. And that's always really stuck with
Mm.
me. And I thought that was a really interesting concept.
If you're trying to be somebody else, neither of you are there. And it's like, you're not there because you're not that person. And that person isn't there because
Yeah.
they're doing their own thing. Happiness is found in the pursuit of a worthwhile goal or dream. And it's not in the attaining of the dream. It's in the pursuit or going after that dream. I'd rather have a great life aligned to my purpose.
And I think that's something that a lot of us, especially us that tie to faith, forget that clarity comes through movement and confidence comes
Absolutely.
through movement. Most conversations and podcasts, they like to really just hit highlight reels. And honestly, I'm not that interested in the highlight reels. What I like is I like seeing like the struggles and the uncommon things that a lot of people don't share. I like
Mhm.
to dive into that. And let's start here, John. What is something that people believe about you that actually isn't true?
That's a great question. So yeah, definitely excited to be on the podcast. So I guess an area where people that the good one would probably be that I'm outgoing or talkative in a sense, given just having been in business for quite a few years now. I've developed that knack of being able to talk to people and connect and do all those types of things. But really internally, I would definitely say I'm more of an introverted, very comfortable being left alone, being by myself, doing my own thing with me and my wife. So I guess that would probably be the immediate thing is my personality and how I connect and work with people.
Awesome. Awesome. So you said that a lot of people think you're outgoing or you like
Mhm.
to talk a lot, and being in business, it's almost like a coat of armor we have to put on. As someone who can relate to that, I'm not necessarily as outgoing as I've learned to be. And I feel like a lot
Yeah.
of it is we learn to adapt. I'm curious, how long did you let that belief of having to be something else shape how you showed up?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say probably for quite a while. I actually just had my 30th birthday this past month. So I'd say probably for the
Awesome.
first 20 plus, 27, 28 years of my life, I'd probably say I fell into that category where I felt like I had to be somebody different than myself and this sort of imposter syndrome of wanting to be a certain type of a way. But as of recently, one of the things I guess on my healing journey and spiritual journey that I found is, again, if you show up the way that you are and be the best version of yourself, that typically is what's going to get the best results in whatever arena that you're in. So that's what I would say it would be, has been a huge game changer in me as of recently, developing that, I guess that sense of self of just saying, hey, you know what? As long as I'm the best version of myself, whatever is meant for me is going to be there and whatever's not isn't going to be there, and just following through on that. But that I'd say it's been probably only a couple of years out of my whole life. Most of my life has been geared towards looking at that whole syndrome of wanting to look good on the outside, regardless of what's going on the inside.
Definitely, dude, and I feel like that's such a relatable path a lot of us take. I'm 33 myself, and I can definitely say that I too have been in that space of where it's almost, and I think it comes with the territory of being men, and especially
Yeah.
being men that are in like business, or even I grew up in sports. So it's almost like we get into this really performance based where our identity is almost solely based on how well we perform or what we do.
Mhm.
And being in America, it's so easy when you meet somebody for the first time, you're always like, "Hi, how's it going? My name is this, and what do you do?"
Yeah.
And it's so interesting, and a lot of other places aren't necessarily wired that way. And one of the big journeys I went on myself was that idea of I'm a human being before I'm a human doing, and that's always really stuck with
Mm.
me, and I thought that was a really interesting concept. I'm sure you probably feel the same, but as you said, this is a fairly recent journey for you yourself. At what point did you realize, like, that version of you that you were living wasn't necessarily sustainable and someone who you truly were?
Yeah, definitely. I would say, like I said, a couple of years ago. So my story grew up in the Maryland area, went to college in Pittsburgh and played football at Carnegie Mellon University, where I studied engineering. After graduating from college, played a year of pro ball up in Canada and arena football out in the Midwest. And around that time was when I started my entrepreneurship journey in network marketing. Around the age of 22-ish, before that, I would say probably up until, like I said, about 27 or so. So, maybe 5 years or so, 4 or 5 years was learning those things. And I would say really the linchpin would probably have been when I started that business journey, because again, prior to that, just living a normal life, going to school, hanging around friends, you're in that environment of, again, just wanting to look good for other people, have a bunch of friends, be popular, all that type of stuff. But I feel like when I started my business, it really started to get me into that mindset of, at least the way that I always thought about it was, nobody's going to pay your bills, but whether somebody supports you or doesn't support you, ultimately you have to be good with your decision. And as long as you're good with it and you're following through on it in a practical way, it really doesn't matter what other people think or if your best friend is interested or not interested. So that, I guess, journey really started right when I began in business, because quite a few people were supportive and others weren't as supportive. And it started to, I guess, develop more of that thick skin where it's okay, I can go against the grain. I don't have to do what everybody else does. And I guess naturally as an athlete, I had a little bit of that in me. But it
For
really
sure.
started, I would say, in business. And over the course of those few years, just reading books, connecting with other people, getting surrounded by people who were at a higher level of life, where they had that mindset of just saying, hey, you know what, just be the best version of yourself. I guess it allowed me to believe that myself and say, hey, you know what? I can just show up as I am and just grow myself. I don't have to be different. I can improve, but I don't have to be different. And by doing that, it gives you such a level of freedom, because you realize, okay, any room I'm in, I can just be myself. And it really doesn't matter what other people think, because ultimately I have to answer to myself and God. And as long as we're good, it matters.
Definitely, and I love that you mentioned God, and we'll definitely touch on where that comes in your story. But I'm curious, like, let's go back. So when you were on your journey here, and you were in that space of still trying to figure things out, who were you trying to be before you became who you are now?
Like I said, that high school sort of syndrome, trying to be that popular kid that fits. I guess most people go towards that. So that was kind of
For
initially. And
sure.
then again, as I was business owner, football player, just trying to be Instagram type highlight reel where it's okay, everything's good on the outside, everything's going well. And for the most part, luckily, nothing crazy really ever happened to me in my life to where it was like I was super coping and portraying something on the outside that was completely against what I was on the inside. So I'm thankful that never really happened too much, but definitely that internal struggle of wanting to do things for other people, wanting to be that people pleaser. I would say that would probably be the biggest one,
Right.
is going a route just because others think it's the right path to go on, or doing something just because, okay, it would make this person happy, or pleasing these individuals. So I would say that was probably the person I was prior to this. And there's still definitely some lingering effects of that. I would say that I still struggle with a little
Sure.
bit today, which I would say is okay. And you're always growing and learning, but I'd say that would probably be the version of myself I was prior to that, before I realized that, okay, yeah, you can help other people. I'm always looking to serve and encourage. But see, I have to be good myself before I can help others, if that makes sense.
I think that's a huge piece that a lot of people wrestle with, is that idea of people pleasing. And I'm curious, like, when you were in that space, what were you afraid what were you afraid would happen if you stopped being that person that you were?
Yeah, probably just the lack of connections and the lack of relationships, or maybe business wouldn't grow as fast. Maybe I wouldn't have the same friend groups, or maybe I wouldn't be invited to those parties or hang out with friends. Kind of those
Mhm.
things that trivially really don't matter, but they matter in the moment as a teenager, young in your 20s. And that was probably the main thing, was just being left out, not wanting to be by myself, even though technically I do enjoy being by myself. And I've learned that now that I'm a little bit older. But that would probably be the biggest thing, was those were the things I would say I was nervous about or scared of. And I realized, again, once you let go, it's like the saying, let go and let God, He will
Mhm.
ultimately take care of. I remember I heard this quote on a video, I think recently, is that God will take care of those that you hurt along the process when you have to step away. So
Mhm.
if you do have to not please that
Yeah,
individual, or
for
you
sure.
have to disappoint somebody because you know that they want you to do something that you weren't really meant to do, or you don't feel called to do, it's our job to be obedient to what God's calling us to do. And God will deal with the person who we feel like might be hurt by that in the moment. So I'd say that was who I was before and how it transitioned a little bit.
As you were going through this, I'm really curious, 'cause this is a great story, by the way. Was there a moment where the cost of staying the same became greater than the cost of changing?
Yeah, yeah, I guess a specific moment, maybe not specifically that I can pinpoint, but definitely a cumulative over a period of time, where it was just the general burnout, where it just gets
For sure.
tiring to keep doing the same thing over and over again, noticing that it's not really getting you what you want, and knowing that, hey, if I just were to be myself and I can still be in certain spaces, do certain things, but just curate it to fit my lifestyle, not the lifestyle I think other people might be happy about or the image I want to portray. Because again, if you're trying to, what was another phrase I heard is if you're trying to be somebody else, neither of you are there. And it's like, you're not there because you're not that person. And that person isn't there because
Yeah,
they're doing their own thing. So it's that mindset of just saying, okay, let me just be myself. And if I become the best version, because over a
it's
period of
good.
time, you trying to be that ideal version or what this person wants you to be, it becomes tiring and it burns you out for sure in the long run.
Definitely. Now, you mentioned you were in this space where you went into business and you said that you were in network marketing, right?
Correct. Correct.
So I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, when you get to this place of business, and I'm assuming you started to generate some level of success there, correct?
Yeah.
So there was this, you were in business and you acquired this success. Was there ever a point where you started feeling, oh man, I need more, or I need to climb the ladder and I need to get to this level and then I'll be satisfied. And then you might have gotten close to that level and then that level wasn't enough. And then I'm curious because I feel like a lot of times in business, it's that idea of if we start chasing after the next thing, which is great. It's great to build things. It's great to acquire and achieve things. But I always look at like counting the cost of that. And I'm curious if you ever had that kind of moment in your journey that got you to where you are now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's funny that you mentioned that because one of my mentors, Bill Britt, who passed away quite a while ago, he had this
Oh man.
phrase that always stuck with me where he said, happiness is found in the pursuit of a worthwhile goal or dream. And it's not in the attaining of the dream, it's in the pursuit or going after that dream. And even though I heard it, I resonated with it, it made sense. Just as a human, I naturally fell into that cycle of, okay, I want to make another sale. I want to hit this level. I want to be recognized on stage and all
Mhm.
those types of things. And even as some of those things came, I realized again, it's hollow. Even thinking back to being a college athlete and going on to play professionally and all these types of things, a lot of it was really fun. But you realize again, once you achieve that goal, it's fun, but it doesn't last very long. It's like buying a new car or doing something. It's fun for a little bit, but eventually you're going to need a better car or a better this or better that. So chasing that, I feel like constantly wasn't the long-term goal. And, you know, really abiding by that principle a little bit deeper is just enjoy the journey because ultimately life is a journey. We're all headed to the same place at the end. And you have to obviously enjoy the process of that because nothing that we do here on earth is going to be brought once we pass away. So that kind of essence of being happy during the process while you're pursuing a goal. And I heard it before. I didn't really embody it again until I, you know, took on that new identity of just being the best version of myself.
For sure. So identity is huge in a lot of the work that I do, a lot of the content that I make, the people that I talk to. And as you begin to speak on identity, when you sit with your thoughts now, with what you've learned, whether lived in experience or by mentors or reading and acquiring knowledge and wisdom, when you think of that concept of identity, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I guess it boils down to again the person that you want to be and the purpose, I guess, that you have. So, what is that version of yourself? I think they say purpose is at the intersection of what you like to do and what you're naturally good at. So, identifying those things, because again, there's certain people that have different traits and skills that are around. Maybe they are an outgoing person. Maybe they're really good at sales, talking to people, doing something like that and they enjoy a certain industry, maybe speaking to people or impacting people's lives. So maybe they're really good at selling and speaking from a stage. That's a good intersection. So I feel like that identity of a person should really be formed in what is that purpose that you have? What do you feel like you're called to do? And what are you naturally good at? What do you feel like you've liked for most of your life? And that I feel like creates a really fulfilling life long term because again, there's always different fads and ways to make money. But like you mentioned, if you're not living in your identity, it's like you're slowly draining yourself out, whether it's a quick little burnout because you're super aggressive and you go after it really hard, which a lot of people feel, or it's like that extended long, I don't know if you have family members or friends like I did who they look back in their 50s and 60s like, man, I should have taken that chance or man, I should have did this, but I just chose to do the same thing over and over because it was comfortable. So I feel like living in that identity of find that purpose for your life and go after it and have it be again at that intersection of what you like to do and what you're good at allows you to build a much more fruitful life long term rather than just a good life, quote unquote. I'd rather have a great life aligned to my purpose.
Definitely. I love that. I think you summed it up pretty well. And like you said, it's that intersection of what makes you come alive slash what you're just naturally gifted at.
Mhm.
And from the Bible in me thinks of the things that how God has given us such gifts and talent. And sometimes it
Amen.
requires someone else to call it out of us when we don't necessarily
Mm,
see it, because it's almost that idea of competence. And it's like it's effortless to us. It's that idea of we do it and we think it's not a big deal a lot of times. We think, oh, I do this without thinking about it. Like some of the athletes that are just born athletes. It's like they can shoot from anywhere and it's always going to go in. I think of like Steph Curry. Like obviously he's put in the effort, but there's
yeah,
a bit of dip there. And I think
definitely.
it's a really important. With that said, and where I'm going with that is when it comes to someone else seeing that potential in you and calling it out of you. And that's why I think it's so important to you touched a little bit about it earlier, is who you surround yourself with, not just peers, but also mentors. And you mentioned a mentor in your life. And with that, I'm sure there was probably someone in your space, that the mentor you mentioned, that inspired you so well and encouraged you so well to step into what you're doing, to the point where now you're doing the same, correct? Because you're also coaching people as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm curious, was there ever a distinct moment for you when you were like, wow, the impact that's been made in my life, I want to do that for others? And if so, I'd love to hear that story.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And even before diving into that, as you were explaining sort of that intersection of competence and yourself with the right people, it brought me to the King David, that whole story of it's like he was tending to the sheep, he was using the slingshot, and he probably thought, oh, I'm just playing, I'm just a kid, just having fun. But he got so good, so world class, to where he was able to defeat Goliath and ultimately help Israel win that battle. And it's so true. I feel like a lot of people, they downplay, and I feel like some people rob themselves of their ultimate purpose or goals because they think, like you said, oh, it's effortless to me. It must not be very valuable. But if they were to lean into that even more, you never know. You could be a world changer. You could have a huge amount of success, whether it's be monetary or otherwise. But that brought me to that thought process as you were saying that so well. But yeah, definitely, I would 1000% say that there was definitely a mindset shift again, just naturally in the industry of network marketing, and now being a network marketer and a business coach. Network marketing itself is built off of people helping people, you being successful by helping other people be successful. Ultimately, again, some people do it incorrectly, but that moment for me happened really early on when I got introduced to the industry of that. I've seen so much value in my life just in the first couple of months and years of working with the mentors that I was with, that I was like, man, the value that I've used has changed the trajectory of my life. I want to pass this on to other people. And like while I might have during that initial journey been very people pleasing and wanting to do things for maybe, I wouldn't say not the right reasons, but just maybe not fully my own reasons, because partially, but maybe not fully, it still did have a tremendous impact on the fact that, okay, I want to go out and make an impact in people's lives. I want to work with people one-on-one at a grassroots level and teach them that, hey, their situation that they're in right now doesn't have to define the rest of their life. Again, I saw so many people in my journey just growing up that felt that way. It's like they say, they died at 25, but they didn't bury them until they died at 65 or 70, because they mentally just check out and say, hey, I'm just going to go with the flow. But I feel like I said, for me, having that innocence and desire to be successful, and having somebody like my mentors who were able to speak life into me and teach me kind of the ropes and just some practical steps on how to build a business, manage money, do things that for the benefit of other people, get out of my comfort zone. Those things, I was like, man, if other people were to just realize that they could do it and not, shortchange themselves because they were quote unquote introverted or scared or shy of talking to people, like the world would be such a better place. Whether or not they join my team or become or marketing, just the ripple effect of realizing like they have so much capacity and ability was a huge motivator for me, which is why I think ultimately it led a lot of my success in network marketing and continuing to have that success, and wanting to be a business coach and help other people practically, even if they aren't in network marketing, build their own business, because it's just, man, like just that adrenaline of helping other people, being successful. I definitely look back in my life and I'm like, I'm so glad I saw business right after college as I was transitioning out of football, because I was so much like this when it came to football, just being very locked in, laser focused, working out, training. And I see a lot of athletes who struggle post playing their sport because it's like they can't give their all to anything anymore. And I feel like for me, I made that transition. I never succumbed to that let me just be the status quo, which I feel like, again, some people fall into if they don't find something right after, they just realize, oh, maybe there's nothing else out there other than my sport. So yeah, so long-winded answer, but I think that definitely
Yeah.
happened where I felt like that impact on me, I wanted to give it to other people. And there's definitely struggles. Some people don't appreciate it as much as you do when you got that level of impact. Even just those minor impacts you have in people's lives, ultimately, I feel like pays off. And eventually you'll find those people that are meant to find you, I would say.
Yeah, and I love
Yeah.
that you touched on an important piece there. You said that a lot of athletes post college, like stepping out
Mhm.
of all the years of being athlete and stepping into the real world,
Mhm.
quote unquote, it tends to
Mhm.
be a struggle. And I feel like, again,
Yeah.
it goes back to that concept of when all you've known is all you were, then it's time to be something else. It's super hard to take off that armor and see who's underneath all that. And I'm
Mhm.
curious, what do you think was different about you and your story that helped you make that transition?
Yeah, I guess I would say the difference for me, or just I guess in general, where I see those points that I connect the dots looking back, is definitely like I said, when I first started my business and realized that not everybody had the same mindset as me. Because I guess I knew it while I was playing football. Because again, not many people like worked out to the level that I worked out to, weren't as consistent as I was. But to a sense, I was like, maybe, I don't know. I just never really thought about it because working out and stuff is more of an internal thing. Like you don't necessarily, you can just do it by yourself. But once I guess, mentally realized that, wow, like, I guess, again, I always thought there was more to life than just, again, working a 9 to 5, doing something. When I realized that people thought differently than that, and some people were okay with just settling, I feel like that really changed me in realizing that, man, if I can just hone in on that belief and then share that belief with other people, that you can definitely make a difference long term. So I would say that was probably the linchpin, I would say, is realizing that not everybody thought that way. And being young, 21, 22, and just, I can be financially free and make all this money. I don't know. I just always believed that there was possibilities out there that were beyond what I had lived. And realizing that some people, for whatever reason, maybe they grew up in a bad situation or were taught things by their parents or through observation. Maybe they just figured out or came to the conclusion that some things not aren't for me, or I'm not meant to be successful, or things like that. Could touch a football, so it's tough, I would say. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's huge. And I think that's why getting mentors and community, getting coaches like you and myself is so crucial in development of every area of our lives. And I think that's huge.
For sure.
And also there's that faith factor. And I'm curious for you. You mentioned that you're also a believer yourself. And I'd be
Yeah.
curious, where did God come into your story and how does your relationship with him play today?
Definitely. And piggyback on what you were just saying, that whole mindset of having that mentor, that coach, the saying that always came to my mind was, believe in my belief in you as your coach until you can believe in yourself. And I feel
Yeah.
like, again, that's crucial because, again, most people don't believe in themselves
Mhm.
to get started, but believe in my belief in you because I know you can do it until you can learn to have that belief in yourself. So that's so true. And yeah, and like you said, it really started again. It was in business. I grew up in church with family. We went to church every Sunday, but again, just like normal, I didn't really necessarily in imbibe it, I guess, myself. And once I went to college, I did my own thing. But it was around the time, I'd say, when I got started in business, first couple of years, just realizing that, again, I can't control all these outcomes. Again, that's I feel like, again, most entrepreneurs have it where it's okay, I can do this. Like thinking back to football, okay, if I put this amount of work in, I'm going to do this. Yes, there are some other people on the team, but I know if I win my one-on-one battle and the coach on the quarterback throws me the ball, it's pretty much a guarantee I'm going to be successful. But in business, there's so many moving parts. If I help this individual, this might not work. And there's other situations going on in people's lives. And I realized that, man, I can't control all of this, no matter how good I individually do, unless God is guiding my path and blessing it, anything can come and sway and knock things off course. So it was in that season of kind of that valley of despair when it's okay. I started to see some initial success. It faded away and that excitement was still there, but a little bit waning when I realized that, man, I have to start focusing on other people. And again, just very thankful about the opportunity of network marketing because it's just built around helping other people in order to be successful. Because if it wasn't, I might have fell into that trap of I can do it all on my own and I can be successful. If it was just sales, like I could do that. I can go out and do it. But when it came to working with people, I realized I have to focus on them rather than focusing on myself. And that through connecting with people in the industry as well as just different churches opened my eyes to I have to believe in that higher power. I have to believe in God, and walking through that, connecting, coming back to my roots, ultimately then gave my life to Jesus with my girlfriend, who's now my wife at the time, and walked during that path. And that was, again, probably that linchpin when I really started living for myself, kind of going back to that first question of living with my own identity. Cause it's like, again, I don't need to be anybody else. I'm fully perfect in Christ. So as I just walk through that journey with him and perfect myself through him, that's ultimately the best. So that's really where it came from. I would say is during those struggles and downturns in business, I realized I need something else. And ultimately I was looking for it primarily in business, but again, ultimately, obviously it affects every aspect of your life when
Oh
you
yeah,
truly understand.
definitely. No, I think that's huge. And one thing I feel like is really interesting is we have seen quite a wave. At least I have. I'm sure you probably have too. This
Mhm.
wave of Christian entrepreneurs. And it's
Yes.
so cool to see Christian business owners, people that are putting their faith into their business. But unfortunately, I feel like some people feel like there's a need to separate the two. It's almost there's the sacred and then there's the secular. And I'd be
Yeah.
curious, do you feel like you've seen that divide too? Or and if so, like where do you find yourself when it comes to that conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely would say I've definitely seen that. And I think it stems from an aspect of just lack of knowledge or education when it comes to the Bible.
Mhm.
For anybody listening that is definitely a Christian entrepreneur or believer, highly would recommend YouTuber Myron Golden. A
Oh
lot of
yeah,
his content, I'm sure you've
great.
heard of him too. So good, especially his early videos. His stuff now is definitely really good, but
Mhm.
some of his early videos just absolutely blew my mind open when he started talking about some of the like one of the main passages of the rich young ruler where Jesus says, sell all your goods and come
Mhm.
and follow me. And how, where he says, it's easier for the camel to go through the eye of a needle than a rich man to go into heaven. And how he broke that down. And ultimately, I don't have time to go into all of it, but basically, the key word in that passage is rich. And the rich in that passage doesn't mean rich in possessions, because again, Abraham is rich. Many people in the Bible were rich that are saved,
Mhm.
David, Solomon. But the rich in that is rich in righteousness, thinking that you're already good. When again, you're not good ultimately. To get back to the question is, I feel like definitely it comes from just the lack of knowledge or hearing some of these popularized Bible verses that and make people think, oh,
For sure.
either one, I can't be wealthy and be successful, or if they're already on that journey and they do realize, okay, I can be both, thinking, oh, I can only serve Christians or I can only serve people who are believers, which I
That's
mean,
good.
again, I guess is good in the sense of, again, you definitely want to help people that kind of have that belief and live their best life here. But ultimately, again, Jesus went out into the marketplace. A lot of the disciples, even
Mhm.
Paul, he preached to all the Gentiles. So it's like you're meant to be the light in the world. It's not like you're only surrounded by people who are believers. I think, again, you definitely should have some community, but I think it's just that belief or maybe that little bit of naivete where it's, I can only
Mhm.
be around believers. I can only do things with people that believe the same thing. But I think that is also, again, in Christ, that's good. But even just that mindset of just, I only want to be around people that think the same way, that I think is just
Yeah,
naturally not
that's
the
huge.
best strategy. Again, and you know,
That's so
even
good.
in religion and all these other things, it's like you should always have competing beliefs. Cause again, another thing Myron says is the truth doesn't have to hide from a lie. Even if you're surrounded by other people
Yeah,
or other beliefs,
so true.
the Bible is the truth. Regardless, might say, or they might try to convert you to whatever other religion that they have. It's as long as you know the truth, you don't have to hide from it. You don't have to be scared of, oh, what if, this person who believes something different says this or says that. So a long-winded answer, but I would say I've definitely seen it. And I think it just stems from a lack of knowledge and courage and boldness and being able to say, you know what I believe, and you're welcome to believe whatever you want, but I'm going to stand on my belief. Most people might not have that courage or might not have that boldness to go out there. So they need to keep working on that.
No, I think that's so true. And just thinking of it too is like obviously Myron's great at the
Yeah.
resources that he has available out there. He's always a top that's a go-to when it comes to sharing that topic. And one thing too, I feel like when it comes to Christians in the business space is it's that idea of it's almost like we're in a culture where everyone's afraid to offend people because you'll get canceled.
Yeah.
And I think that regardless how you like the Bible is offensive because it's a truth, and the truth can be offensive.
Sure.
Now, obviously, you're not
Yeah.
purposely trying to offend people and bash people with it, but I feel like a lot of Christians shy away from not necessarily showing all their cards, but being willing to share their faith in the marketplace. And I think
Yeah.
that getting a seat at the table it requires excellence and a level of success. Because if you have a
Mhm.
business and a business is broke, the business isn't making money, it's losing money, then you're not necessarily in the conversation. But
Sure.
if you have a business and a business that's submitted to God, and again, God does the miraculous when we choose to give him our business. And I've
Sure.
seen it time and time again, not just with my own, but with others that I know in the space. But even within that, you're gonna give yourself an opportunity to be the hands and feet of Jesus by
Mhm.
feeling practical need. Because when you're able to feel a practical need, then you're able to feel someone's spiritual need. Like, I
Right.
love it. I've got a friend, a business, partner of mine even, we've been working on a new project here lately, but he's done a few masterminds where he's seen people come to know Jesus, give their life to Jesus, end up getting baptized at masterminds, and that's been a byproduct of him just being excellent at his craft and giving God the glory in what he's doing, and I always encourage those, and a lot of my demographic on my podcast are Christian, but I feel like even more so when we are reaching more people, it's like, I think that it's it's the ability to hold the tension and be there for someone that doesn't believe or think like you is huge.
Mhm.
And if we're ever going to, again, continue to share the message of Jesus, it's gonna be not by throwing a Bible at people, telling them they're going to hell because they don't believe like you. It's gonna be relationally. And again, if you're not willing to sit at the table and have a dialogue, a calm dialogue with someone and hear someone out. And also, I feel like there's growth there that you might not have being in just a bubble of a bunch of like-minded people. But that's a whole nother that was a whole nother
Well,
tangent in itself, but I feel like we were in a moment there that it was necessary. But yeah, man, I really enjoyed your story and this conversation. And I'd be curious if and a lot of your work is with you're primarily business coaching, right? Or do you do a bit of
Yeah.
the mindset behind it?
Yeah, I would say
Correct?
primarily
Okay.
a business coach, but again, also that mindset behind it, helping people at their needs who are looking to grow, primarily through content creation.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Cool, cool. Now, are you coaching more so like a one-on-one, like specific, like you said, content? So like then maybe strategies for content?
Yeah. Yeah. So my ideal client that I typically work with is, I would say, two categories of people. One is an existing business owner, entrepreneur who already has a practical business that's making them money, but they want to add streams of income and they want to learn how to utilize content to create more cash flow, whether it be through getting more
That's
clients or monetizing
that's
their content like on social media. So that's the first group, most of the people that I work with. But number two is also just content creators who like to post content. Again, maybe Christians, maybe believers who are posting content, but they want to figure out how can I monetize this because they're still working 9 to 5. They want to maybe be more businessy, have another stream of income. So also working with them to actually monetize their content and actually create a business around it. So similar paths for both people, but two different demographics. So those are kind of the two main people that I'm working with. Right.
that's awesome. With that, what would you say to someone that's maybe in one of those two categories and they're thinking like, what would be the next step that they could take tomorrow to start making moves towards getting those desired outcomes?
Yeah, absolutely. The best next step I would say would one to be just start creating some sort of content, start posting something, being more active. And primarily, I would say do it short videos around an area of interest that you have, especially business owners, especially who already have a business and they're looking to scale it. The biggest pullback that people don't post videos is because I don't have time. I don't want to edit it. I don't want
Mhm.
to do all these things. But again, one of the things Myron talks about, and just being in this industry and being an engineer also full time, I realized that again, AI is going to take a lot of jobs, a lot of sources of income away from people, and realizing that building a personal brand is probably one of the more safer things that you can do. And if you start now, over a period of time, you'll get better. And again, another thing most people are scared of is what if my videos aren't good? And the great part about it is that they're not going to be good, but also people aren't going to see it because you're not going
No,
to get that many videos. But as
that
you
part.
continue to do it and get better, it gets better over time. So the practical step I would say would be to just start making videos. If you're somebody who has a passion, maybe you're not an entrepreneur, you're just working a 9 to 5, start making something that you're passionate about, whether you're a believer, whether it's something about business. If you are a business owner, start posting stuff because again, the things that you need to become more findable to the people that want to buy what you have to sell. So again, if you're already a business owner, we can help you start to create that content and find your ideal audience. If you're already a content creator, you already have the audience or you already have people that are connected to you. Now you need to connect those people to something that an offer that you have, and working with people, I help them create that offer that makes sense for their brand, for their personality, for their audience that they have. But yeah, practical step is just start doing something, start posting something, start getting stuff out there. Because once you start that process, it's again, like you were mentioning before about people and how they work with people with different backgrounds and sharing the gospel. I always believe it's God will show you the first step of the staircase, but he's not going to show you the next 50 until you take that first step. And so often people want to see that
Yep.
last step before they take the first step. And I feel like that's kind
So
of how it
true.
is, at least for me too. It's just, hey, just start posting videos. And then, okay, once you start posting, another idea is going to come. Okay, start doing this. Or if it comes to business or sharing the gospel, it's okay, let me say this to this person, but I don't necessarily need to say this to everybody. It's kind of, again, the Holy Spirit gives you that discernment of what to do at that time. That's what I would say is take that initiative and then be receptive to what the Holy Spirit tells you to do, because it's going to be different for everybody, but ultimately he'll guide you down that path, the steps that he has for you. But take the steps, because if you never take the first step, you'll never see that end vision.
That's so good. That thought of, obviously you've got to take the first step. And
Mhm.
then, and what I always love is there's the scripture that says, "You're the lamp to my feet." He didn't say
Mhm.
that he was the stadium lights to the whole path. He said that
Exactly.
you
Yep.
were the lamp. With a lamp, you only see a few, maybe a foot or so in front. You're not seeing so far, like yards and yards ahead. And I think that's something that a lot of us, especially us that tie to faith, forget that clarity comes through movement and confidence comes
Absolutely.
through movement. And yeah, I can attest to that. I've been making content for a while, and yeah, you're gonna make content and it's gonna be trash, and you gotta
Mhm.
accept that. And the people that improve in skill and see success are those that are willing to suck long enough until they don't suck anymore. And I think
Yeah.
that's huge. And you touched on something that obviously it's a hot topic, and I feel like it's gonna be for a while. Is AI. So how are you leveraging AI? How are you maybe teaching AI to your clients as you coach? What is some of the key things that are in the forefront of your mind when it comes to putting all this together?
Yeah, absolutely. For those that are interested in learning how to leverage and use AI, maybe in their own business or a business they want to start, I can definitely share with you my AI, my free plug-in profit guide, which shows you different practical steps
Nice.
that you can use to start your own business and leverage AI to start automating certain aspects of it. So I'll put that below in the show notes, or I'll share it with you so you can put it down there. But yeah, the practical steps I would say is really, I would say probably 2 or 3 things. So with most people, when it comes to business, the first thing in business is you have to start to generate leads or people that are interested in what you have to sell. It's like having a storefront. People that walk in the door are a potential client. They aren't a client yet, but they're potentially a client. They're interested. Then from leads, you have to convert those leads into clients or people that buy. So using AI, the way that I do it practically is helping automate that system. Because if you do all of that manually, let's say you're cold calling or cold messaging people, it does work. I guess definitely if you do the numbers game, you're definitely going to find people that want it. But again, there's a lot of burnout there. It takes a lot of effort to get a little bit of results. So with AI, what you can do is you can automate a lot of those services. You can start to build an email list, a list of people that are likely going to be interested in your product or your offer. And with most businesses, it takes 5, 6, 7 interactions with you before somebody's comfortable to place an order on anything you have to sell them. So by having an email list, you can then start to send out emails automatically to that list of people. And as they get to know you a little bit, get comfortable with your content, again, maybe you're a content creator. As you post more content, people get to know you and your business. They watch a few of those videos and like, hey, this would be a perfect fit for me. That converts them into a client. And then from there, you move them up the scale and maybe make them more of a premium client who buys more premium offers for you. So the way that I utilize AI is basically in that initial stages of how can you start to attract the leads that you want, utilizing the content, and then how can you nurture those leads to ultimately make them a client of yours, primarily through email marketing, through creating content, through posting. Those are the best ways I've seen now. And it helps you long term because these are things, again, once you build out a social media platform, you can start to get paid on social media just for your videos, let alone anything you sell, but just for making videos, you can start to get paid from it. So there's so many revenue streams, but that's the primary way that I would say that I help people is how they can utilize AI in that initial process. Because once you master that, then it's basically like a money printer. Once you know how many posts and emails you need to sell, you need to put out to get an X number of sales, it's just repetition, repetition. And, again, AI helps with that because you don't have to keep doing it over and over. You can just have it run for you.
That's so good, and I think that's huge, and I think, again, I feel like there's some people out there that look at AI and they overcomplicate it, and they're like, "Oh, no, what's this? Another 1,000 different tools to look at," and it sounds like you've started to package it in a way where people have a starting place. So, yeah, I'll definitely get the link from you, and that'll be in the show notes. But aside from that, before we start landing the plane here, where can people find you? I always wanna make sure I make the time to give you the opportunity to share that.
Yeah, I would say definitely in that plug and profit guide. That's an easy way where you can get on my email list and I can start sharing with you more practical tips. But you can also go to my website, johnprather1.com, or you can follow me on all social media platforms at johnprather_1. And you can definitely reach out, my content, get a feel of what I do, who are the people that I help. And if it's something that connects with you, you can send me a DM, email me, and then we can start talking from there.
That's awesome. That's awesome, John. Yeah, it's been a great conversation. But before we go, I want to wrap it all up with a nice, neat bow here and focusing back on you. I'm curious, when you get to the end of your life, at the end of your life, what would it mean to you to know that you've been faithful? And what do you hope people remember from the life that you've lived?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say for me, I defined this for myself in that valley of despair when I found Christ. And I decided that the theme of my life, I wanted it to be based around these three things. One was freedom. So financially, spiritually, mentally, just having the freedom to do what I want to do, when I want to do it, where I want to do it. But again, ultimately, one of my mentors, Bill Britt, he said, you can't really truly be free until you're economically free. Because if you're always needing to go do this to make money, you really don't have the freedom to do whatever you want. So freedom was the first one. The second one was impacting millions of lives all around the globe. So having a tangible presence in people's lives, teaching them practical skills, whether it be business, faith, something to like tangibly impact them so that they can leave changed and go and do something. And then the last one kind of ties into that is empowering people to be the best versions of themselves. So using the impact I have, whether it's just maybe a talk I do, whether it's a podcast I'm on, whether it's me sitting down with them as a one-on-one coach for years. Again, there's different levels of connection with people, but using whatever time I have with them to have them believe in themselves a little bit more, primarily pointing them to Christ as best as I can, but also showing them that again, they have so much value. And if they start stepping out on that value, that they'll be able to impact people and create whatever impact that they're looking to create. So those are what I would say would be the three main things is be freedom, impact, and empower. And again, along those lines of like we were talking about, I feel like once you empower somebody and show them that they have so much more inside of them, like internally, God will definitely use that as a way to lead them. Because again, that's what happened to me when I realized, hey, I have the ability to be a business owner, not just be an athlete. These things, that was the initial that led me on my journey to ultimately finding Christ. Even though it happened a few years later, I feel like that's a thing where it's just getting people out of their comfort zone and being the best versions of themselves. So hopefully, I'm remembered by that. That's my goal long term.
That's awesome, John. Hey, thanks again for taking the time and sharing your story, not just to me, but also to this audience. I know that they're going to be encouraged by it, not just inspired, but there's some practical steps they have, and they've got a few next steps to take to get connected with you. For those listening and watching, as always, I'm grateful that you tune in. Definitely go check out John, get some of these resources that he has available. And as always, I like to close this way. I love you, friend. I'm praying for you. Now let's go live better than best as we conquer this week. Peace.
Okay. Thank you.